Hello, good afternoon, and welcome. My name is Melissa, and I will be your Blue Coat for our professional learning coding series today. We're doing part 2 of patterns in nature. So if you are just joining us today, that's awesome. I'm going to do a little bit of a recap of what we did yesterday before we get on to today's session. So I'm just going to wait just a few more seconds just to see if we've got any more joiners. So it is a live session, though it is all recorded, so you're going to be able to check this out later and refer back to it. So I've got a few tuned in, so I am going to get started. First thing, I would like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional and ancestral lands of the Atikameksheng, Anishinaabeg, and Wanapitei First Nation. I'd also like to acknowledge the Métis Nation for their cultural and economic contribution in this area. These lands sit in the Robinson-Huron Treaty area, and as we are all treaty people, it is important for us all to be thinking about what treaty area we live in and are an active part. So let's take a moment to appreciate the land that we are on by acknowledging the traditional territory and treaty area you are located in as well. As I said, we're sort of live streaming throughout the province, so we're not all in the same area. So we're going to take a second to recognize that. So as I mentioned, we're on our second session of patterns in nature. So I wanted to just sort of start off quickly showing a couple slides about, let's swap me small and this slide big. Some of the resources that we have online on our Science North website. So just to make sure that it's nice and easy for you to find all the resources afterwards, I thought I would just take a little second here and do the little step-by-step where to find this on our website. There's sort of a few different paths that you can take. So the landing site of sciencenorth.ca has got, switch to my screen here. It's got a tab here, Learn. So that Learn tab is where all of our school, teacher fun things live. So we've got these virtual learning packages up here, this teachers tab. I'm going to click here. So we've got schools.sciencenorth.ca. Also sort of has resources there, though you can always find them by going through our main site on that Learn tab. So here we've got the educator resources. That pops us over to here. Right in there, that education tab will bring us here. Now here we've got learning resources, videos for teachers and for students for all different grade levels. Now here's where our professional learning coding series, that's what we're doing today. So here we are, grades 1 and 2. So here's all the handouts, lesson plans, things that I might refer to today. So that's sort of your package there. And you'll see here, this is the video that I recorded yesterday. So that was the live session. That was sort of the intro part. So this lesson plan has 3 sort of activities that we've proposed. And I will review, what we did yesterday. So let's get back to here. So our sort of workshop goals are kind of remain pretty constant for us at Science North. We want to get students excited, thinking about science. So we're looking to always build creative activities. For teachers, we want to sort of send you off with some ideas, give you sort of a launching point of different activities that you might do with your students. So This patterns in nature, again, this session today, we're going over the math activity. So the resources for the math activity, you'll have the lesson plan. So the lesson plan encompasses both of the sessions. We've got a coding handout that's also sort of complementary, and ideas handout, and Scratch Junior. So that's the program that we're going to be using today. So last, I'm going to do sort of a lightning round of what we did yesterday. We looked at patterns. So we looked at how we can relate the seasonal patterns into a loop. So the coding concepts that we're kind of sort of trying to hammer home with this whole lesson will be loops and conditional statements. So we're using the seasons to apply those concepts. So we were able to show that the temperatures of each month, the average temperature sort of varies seasonally. So what we have here is just a quick sort of overview of 4.5 years of sort of temperature averages. So we can really see that the seasonal temperatures follow a cycle. And again, talking about seasonal changes, it's, 1, 2, 3, 4 seasons and then repeat. So that looping concept. So we proposed an activity. We proposed a Simon Says activity that would be related to the seasons. Now, Simon Says is an interesting activity as it relates to conditional statements because it is a conditional statement. The game is itself. So if Simon says, then I do the action. So we propose that Simon Says game to relate the seasons to an action. So we talked yesterday also about coding loops. So these are some examples of block code that would designate a loop. So this is, sort of our starting block. As we get into Scratch Junior, I'll be explaining those a little bit more in depth. And essentially, we just see that we've cycled. You have step 1, step 2, and 3, and 4. Now this arrow here designates that we'll loop back 10 times and then end. So this would be a 10-year seasonal cycle. And this little block shows us how we would make the seasons loop forever. Yesterday, we also went over some examples of conditional statements. So conditional statements are chunks of code that help computers to make a decision. And we related some of those to real life examples. So there's conditional statements. Now, the second activity that we had proposed yesterday is a coding activity, and this is about drawing conditional statements. So this template here is included. It's called the conditional statement handout. So that's one of the resources here. And the task was to have students create a conditional statement based upon a season and an animal. So I think I do, yes, have this example here where actually there's 4 different conditional statements here, but we've put them, each after the other in order to create a loop. So if it's springtime, then the bear is awake. If it's summertime, then the bear is feeding and getting fat for the winter. Starting to think about hibernation, and if it's winter, then the bear is hibernating. So here we've got this arrow that sort of tells us that this is going to loop forever. The activity that we proposed, students could either draw all of the 4 seasons for one animal. You might want to assign students a different season of the same animal, then you can put them together to make a loop. So these are the offline sort of activities that we have proposed. And the online, we're moving to today. So let's see here. So the program that we're going to be using today is called Scratch Junior. It's geared to ages 5 to 7, pre-literacy. So there's not a lot of text in any of the blocks. It's all sort of image and icon based. It's free software, so that's always great. So you can download Scratch Junior to a tablet or a device. So there's an app that exists. You get that, you put it on, your iPad, whatever, and you can use it that way. Another way that you can use Scratch is by downloading the version for a desktop. So today I'm going to use the version for the desktop. Because that way I can share the screen, so that's nice. You can sort of see where my cursor's going, rather than have a camera over my shoulder while I iPad. So you'll probably, if you want to use this in the classroom, I think a really nice thing about this program is it's sort of touch and drag, so you can use it, with the smartboard and have students participate that way, rather than doing sort of an individual. If you want to do sort of an individual activity, you can do it that way, obviously, and you can also do sort of a smartboard lesson with that as well. So I'm going to switch screens here, and I'm going to go actually into the Scratch Junior program. Oh, I'm big again because I stopped sharing my screen. And Scratch Junior. So this is sort of the Scratch program once it pops up. Just a note about downloading the program. I myself had to override like a certain a security, I want to say, I had to divert some security because of it's not an official app. So you may or may not encounter that problem depending on what your security settings are for your computer. So once I land on Scratch Junior, I can click the help button. There's going to be a little 3-minute video that's actually quite informative about how to use Scratch. Another interesting thing is you can quite easily change the language of Scratch. Now, again, there isn't a lot of language because, like I said, it's made for sort of pre-readers. So there isn't a lot of text, but you can easily switch from English to French to all of these other languages. Now, especially for sort of the tutorials. So over in the corner here, I sort of clicked open the book where we can learn about Scratch Junior. Something else that's nice is the interface guide. So I can go through here and sort of get a quick overview, excuse me, as to, just grab some water, each of sort of the buttons on the interface and what those all are. So there we can see all the different modes, and you can click through and learn about the interface. There's also the paint editor guide, so you can make changes to different backgrounds. You can make changes to these are called the sprites. And then the blocks guide. So here you have a sort of an explanation of what all of the different blocks kind of do. So you've got triggering blocks. So these are the blocks that will start your program. Motion blocks, well, they will cause movement of your sprite on the screen. Different looks blocks, so they can change, excuse me again, the size and what your sprite looks like. You can also add sounds. Oops. Quick scroll. And there are also control blocks for pausing the script, for stopping the script, and then the end blocks here. So the activity that we're proposing with the Scratch Junior is similar to the conditional statements, where we drew, if it's winter, then then the bear is hibernating. So that is just an example here. So I've got a few, just little different projects here. Now, the first one that I wanted us to try today, so hopefully anyone who's watching, hopefully you're following along. It's super helpful for you to try to build these blocks of code sort of on your own. If you have any questions, please let us know. You can pop questions into the chat. And I'm like halfway through, and now I remembered that I forgot to introduce Brendan. So I've got Brendan. He's a moderator. He's like hidden behind the scenes there. I can see him until he pops in, and then you can see him. Now we can all see him. So he's going to be taking questions and answering them in the comments. If there's anything that I should answer sort of in the video on screen, he's going to pass those questions along to me. So if you have any questions about Scratch Junior sort of as we go along, please let us know. So I'm going to switch back here to my little screen here. So we've got, this is where the sprites live. We've got this, full screen. So this is a code that I did before. Now, in my presentation, all of the code is there so that you can refer back to it afterwards. And additionally, in the coding handout, so that's one of the 3 sort of resources that accompany this lesson. Also, there's screenshots of all the different code. So this is the program here. I run it. Now it's a forever loop, so it's going to go on forever. I'll save us this and stop it. So this is sort of a beginner kind of activity where you can have the students looping the 4 seasons. So I'm going to go back to the start here, start a new project so we can sort of step by step see how we might do that. So you'll notice you've got the blank screen, you've got a character. A fun thing, and obviously not necessary, would be to add a different character or change the character. Now, something that I found not that intuitive when you're using Scratch Junior is how to delete anything. So since it's tablet based, when you press and hold something, then the icon sort of shakes and then there's an X and then you can delete it. So there's actually no right click function on your desktop version. So here's me right clicking and nothing's happening. So if you hold on your left click button, that brings you up the little X and you can get rid of a character or a background. So I'm going to pick I would like the fish, but then I'm going to need water. I'm just going to I'll pick the teen. There we go. So you actually need to have something in your code in order to have your blocks act on. So I've sort of just picked this character, but what we actually want to do is loop the background. So what I'm going to do this time is pick over here. So we have the 4 different seasons, represented here. That's nice. So we'll start off in the springtime. So we want to actually line up, before we add the code blocks, we sort of want to line up our 4 different backgrounds and how we want to loop them through. So we'll have the spring first. Go in. We can get rid of tick again. We'll add back the teen. And we'll pick the winter. No, wait. Spring, then winter, no. I'll fix it in a second. So we've got the spring and then the winter. And we can do this because we skipped some seasons. So we'll go from spring. Again, we can get rid of tick, add the character that we want. spring, then summer. I think this is summer, yes. Okay. Spring, summer, winter, nope. So let's add tick in here. Oops, too far. Here we go. Now we'll add the last season. Perfect. So now we have sort of the set in order. But we haven't given any code blocks. We haven't changed, we haven't given an action, and we haven't acted on anything. So what we want to do is we'll start off here. These are our trigger blocks, right? So we're going to have this trigger. We're gonna start off. This is the normal kind of basic. When we click the green flag, then our code is going to start. So if we're not going to have our character moving or doing anything like that, what we actually want to do, we want to switch over to the second page. Oh, so I was working on page 3 here. I want to work on page 1. Though I will need a green flag at each spot. So from page 1, we want to move over to page 2. So how do we do that? Well, it's not in the motion blocks or the look blocks, the sound blocks. Here we are in sort of the end blocks. So what I can do here, I can add the start and I can add the end. Now, something that's kind of helpful, I like to check my code as I'm going throughout and make sure that the character and the scenes and everything is doing what I want to do as I go along. And if not, then you can always go back and check. So I'll just sort of full screen this here and click my green flag and see what happens. Okay, so I went from here to here. Okay, so now let's change the scene to the next one. So now I'm on page 2. I'll again add that start block. Then from page 2, I want to go to page 3. Now I'll do a little test again. So let's actually restart. So here, it happens really quickly. So if I click here, this just restarts if my person has moved around, or it resets everything sort of to the beginning. So we can see that my code is running. I'm going from this scene to this scene and then this scene, but it's all happening really, really quickly. So something that's interesting in code and something that we don't often think about in sort of day-to-day life is that you actually have to program pauses. You have to tell the computer how long you want it to wait before it moves on to the next step. So it's going so quickly because I didn't give it a wait time. So what I can do, just so that I can actually see the seasons changing a little better, I can add this pause block. So each of the units represents 1/10 of a second. So if I've got 10 tenths of a second, this equals to 1 second. Okay, so now I'm going to pause for 1 second before I move on to that next background. And I'm going to do the same thing here, because again, it was just happening a little too quickly. So this time, we're going to add the pause. We want to move to the next season. And now we're at the last one. So this is where we actually were turning our code into a loop. So again, we start with the flag. We want to add that pause. And since we're restarting back at page 1. This is what actually is going to build the loop. So now we've got each of those little blocks. So let's start here and see our code. It's not working. Oh, sorry, I closed my window. Let me find that again. I'm not sure if it was actually a lag in my screen or actually my code not working. So let's go back in there. Still no. Okay, so let's go back to the one that I worked on before. This one. So here I started with winter this time. Winter, spring, summer, and fall. And you can see that I've got the same code blocks here. Just gonna try to full screen. And this one seems to want to cooperate, so that's great. Okay, so that's the sort of the simple example where we have created a loop of all of the different seasons. Now, this is another example here of a code where we were doing this sort of that conditional statement. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. So in this, I'm wanting to illustrate if it is springtime, then the spring peepers are peeping. So in, again, one of the handouts that we have prepared for this lesson, we've given a sort of a list of ideas of conditional statements that might apply to some of the animals within the, or some of the sprites from within Scratch Junior. So we've got these animals here. So in that ideas handout, we have, like I said, different conditional statements that would apply to these sort of creatures in their sort of respective seasons. So one of those was, if it's springtime, the spring peepers are peeping. So I've got this here. So we can see, I'll just do this and we can see, let's run. He hops along a little, and then he peeps. So this I created using 2 different pages. So the second page actually adds the peep peep. So you can use so the grid function is actually nice because it helps you to place your sprite in the same spot from one page to the next if that's something you want to do. And you can also change your backgrounds. So here, so I've clicked on sort of the page background selector. So that's sort of the undo, redo. You can fill in here. So now I've selected the not background that I wanted. Let me go back here. There we go. So you can edit the different backgrounds, and that's how I sort of got this little speech bubble here. And the sound was also a sound that was recorded of spring peepers. So if we look at this code here, I've got the start block. So we start the flag. He's going to walk forward and hop and walk forward. So each of these is going to show how many times, or how many steps in that direction. Here he hops twice, and then he moves forward 3 times. And now here I've got that delay again. So this holds for 1 second and then moves on to page 2. And if I move on to page 2, I can see here the flag. So it's going to start here. It's going to play the sound. It's going to pause for 1 second, and then the code's going to stop. So this is just an example of an, if-then statement. So the last example I want to go through is sort of, I've cycled through. It's got an if-then for sort of each of the seasons. So it's sort of following one animal through each of the different seasons. So we've got this little guy here. Oops, I went back to the beginning. I meant to go here. So when I click the start, it's going to walk around a little. He changes colors in the seasons. So he's supposed to be brown in the summertime. And so I've got him sort of gray on the shoulder seasons. And then he's going to loop back around and turn white again in the wintertime and back to spring, and so on and so forth. So again, I started off by changing out the different backgrounds on the different pages, and then sort of programming each motion for each page. Once I changed in between seasons, I was able to edit the color of the rabbit in the sort of sprite editor here. So I picked gray because I thought he can't just go immediately from white to brown and brown to white. There's got to be somewhere in the in-between. So I used the fill tool to change the color of the rabbit here. So this is my atomic rabbit code. So here I just have the green flag. Now here the rabbit sort of appears. So this is an appear button. And again, I have the pause. So this pause is for 3 seconds, and then it switches over to the next page. And on the next page, we just have him sort of moving right and left, left, left. So here I've got actually 3 lefts in a row. So this would be, if I wanted to make my code shorter and more efficient, something that I could do, oops, let me stop this, is take out these blocks here. Right, so these are kind of redundant. These are unnecessary. Here, I can change that to a number 3. So these blocks are sort of not necessary anymore. Now another thing, it's not obvious about how to get rid of these. So your sort of impulse is to right click them. And if you hold them, then actually they just make your bunny move. So you can, anything that you want to bring away from the stage, you sort of just like shoot, and it makes that noise just like that. Yes. Just get rid of it. So this is also sort of a good example of how you can rearrange blocks if you want. Or again, like I say, make your code more efficient. So rather than having those 3 left steps in a row, I can use one code block for that. And now here again, I've got the rabbit appears, we wait 20 seconds, and then we move back to the first page, the first scene. And there we have it. Oh, but we have the atomic green bunny now. So the last thing I want to do is really go back to this code and double check it and see why it wasn't working. So this is something some people find really rewarding about coding, is going back and finding where you made a mistake and fixing it. And this is, some people find it a little more frustrating. So that's sort of like, I think a good thing would be to sort of encourage that resilience and that grit of finding the pleasure or the satisfaction in solving those problems. So again, my code looks right, but I'm gonna have to work on this one. So I won't hold you all up here while I go back and finish my code, but I do want to just stop the screen for a second, come back to here. So just a quick sort of, end off here. In the presentation that is posted online, I've got sort of the step-by-step, all of the walkthrough of screenshots of that code as examples. So you can sort of replicate it there, or I really encourage you to try out your own examples. It's always, you're always discovering new and interesting things as you work through and solve the problems on your own. If you end up with any questions, then please shoot them our way. I'm just going to quickly scroll through here. We also have the coding handout also has those screenshots there as an additional resource. So here I've got a QR code for a survey. So if you did participate, we would love to know your thoughts. We are always trying to improve and make these sessions better for teachers. So what worked for you, what didn't, we would love to hear back. If you need help in the future, if you have questions about sort of integrating coding into your classroom, then we have an awesome team of educators that are working together on this project at Science North. So we are committed to sort of getting back to you on any of the questions, either by email, or if you want to set up sort of a phone or a video chat with us, then we would love to do our very best to kind of help you out with those math and coding, fun things. So I'll just sort of give another little bit of a second. If anybody wants to ask any questions, you can stick them into the comments. I know there's a tiny bit of a lag from the time that I'm putting this out to the world and you're seeing it. So I'll just give a few seconds to see if we have any questions. Well, thank you, and you're very welcome, Shelley. It really warms my heart to know that there's like people out there tuning in. It's I'm in my stepdaughter's room and just chilling out at home, so it's nice to connect. So thank you. So I will leave you here, and if you have any questions, send us an email, and we hope to see you again soon. Take care.